it's very clear who's the aggressor here. Russia has amassed 100,000 troops at the border of the Ukraine. Russia is conducting a war since 2014 in southwest Ukraine, and Russia has illegally occupied Crimea. So I don't think there can be any doubt who's the aggressor here and who is the defender. I think that NATO has never been set up to be an aggressive organization at all. I think that the clear signal has been since 1997, since the NATO-Russia Founding Act, that there is no intention to launch any aggression towards Russia. And I don't really think that Putin is afraid of NATO at all. I think this is a tactical stance. I think it's an old legend that we promised never to expand, or Germany promised never to expand towards Eastern Europe. I think that is all used by Putin as a pretext, as attacks on Russian minorities in the Ukraine is used as a pretext, or has been used in 2014 and could well be used again.
So, in your opinion, even if Ukraine were to drop its stated aspiration to join NATO, that would not de-escalate the situation at the moment?
If NATO would decide to declare anything official that Ukraine or other countries, we also talk about Sweden and Finland, that Putin wants to be guaranteed not to enter NATO, that would undermine the credibility of the West to a large degree. On the other hand, I think we can be a bit more relaxed from a Moscow perspective when I look to NATO expansion, because the status quo that we have since 2018, since Georgia and the Ukraine last time discussed to join NATO, is a de facto moratorium. There is no discussion on the table that Ukraine is going to join NATO. I think that Putin is just worsening the situation himself. So he creates a dilemma that hasn't been there before. There hasn't been no intention by NATO to do any military aggression towards Russia. That's not in the DNA of NATO, and that there's no interest in anywhere in Europe, and definitely not in the United States, in my view, to have a military escalation anywhere in Eastern Europe. But now the situation, of course, forces the Western allies to rethink that and to set up a very robust defense position in NATO, because the Poles and the Baltic Sea countries, Romania, Bulgaria, are rightfully scared.
Do you think this whole episode could ultimately bring the West closer together?
Well, I think it already did. I think Putin deserved a transatlantic award for bringing us closer together than ever since 1990. There's very clear resolve. I think there's no piece of paper between the heads of states and Presidents Biden, Macron, Scholz, the Poles. We're all singing from the same hymn sheet. I think there's a very coordinated, very robust answer. That's the sanctions piece that we mentioned, which I think are very credible. And there's also the willingness to increase NATO presence in NATO countries, of course, only if needed. And I think the US National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, Tony Blinken, Biden have made that also very clear.
Well, let me ask you one further question related to that then, Jan Friedrich. Is there any chance that this may have changed sentiment sufficiently in Germany that we see a pivot away from the more peaceful stance we've seen in the country, and that ultimately there is international agreement for a Germany that has a more militaristic posture?
I wouldn't say militaristic posture. I think this situation is very clearly seen as dangerous, as significantly harming European peace interests. I think Germany will take a more robust position when it comes to any economic coercion issues. I think we will not deliver weaponry towards the Ukraine. I agree with Annette. But I think that there is a markedly shift in the German attitude towards a more robust foreign policy, which includes our military commitments. I think there will be a stronger commitment to our NATO. I think that Germany will not become a military superpower all of a sudden, also not under this government, but a more robust foreign policy is what we're going to see going forward in all over Europe, including in Germany.